Hey, so today is the 2nd of January 2022. Don't let my outfit fool you. Similarly to don't let my name fool you, for those who know my modeling name, which I haven't ever hidden, which is Lady Dori Belle. Go to my website, www.susanmeeling.com. Don't let that name fool you either, because I've been in different communities, different lifestyles, so on and so forth. Don't let me being a biological born female fool you either. I might just surprise you by a smidgen of a lot. Don't let my tattoos fool you, because I can be soft-ish, I suppose. I mean, depending on which you view as soft, I do have a tattoo, this particular one right there. That particular tattoo, there's Kuan Yin underneath. And 2 weeks later, I got the Phoenix taken care of, but so the Kuan Yin tattoo took about 2.5 hours. 2 weeks later, maybe 2.5 weeks later, I had gotten the Phoenix put on, however you want to put it. That was about a 5.5 hour length of a session. I was not willing to walk around with a half-done tattoo because of how I had wanted it. So 2 days later, I went back in for another 5.5 hour session, and I refused to give up. So, and I succeeded. I did. And that was that was in San Antonio, Texas, also known as Military City, USA. So that's kind of a reference point, because even though, I've got, look at the little pretty flowers and stuff like that, I can make that joke, I suppose. I still have my Methuselah tattoo. So it pretty much, when you think about my tattoos as to how diverse in certain references, because look, little pretty irises. And look, little flowers, it's so pretty. They're still tattoos. Yeah, it's still a needle that goes and jabs the ink into your skin repeatedly over and over and over again until it makes a picture. Pretty or whatever your opinion is. So, I've had these discussions with people mainly over certain time frames where either they've brought up, Lady Dori Belle isn't a very dominant name. That's not a very leather name, or what have you. I've had various discussions, and it's one of those, that's nice. Did I ask your opinion on my name? And then, of course, the answer was no, and well, there you go. I'm gonna and then they'd be shocked because, I don't know, the tattoos in the center of my palms apparently didn't give them enough of a memo. I might be stubborn. So, going to this reference of this particular tattoo, yeah, I could be a little stubborn. I can be. So what does that have to do with the video today, huh? Or I should say this particular official YouTube video, because there are times when I do more than one video in a day because of whatever situation, especially from the time frame of 2020 to this particular point in time of 2022, where there's the COVID situation. And people have had to socially distance or whatever, and that stuff, as far as when it comes out as to the reality. So in this particular reference, I went out to the ocean this particular year. I also did this in 2021. So in technically 2020. So back in 2020, in the month of December, was the Bethlehem Star. And I decided, instead of staying in the state of Texas and, going wherever, I decided to go out to the ocean. I had a reminder in certain references So, for those of you who know, I earned 26 scuba diving certifications. That might in itself show a smidgen bit of stubbornness. And I had set a few goals for myself. Some I had informed other scuba divers in the civilian recreational area, and some I did not. The majority of the ones that I did not discuss what my goals were have to do either with the creation of my underwater travel system or certain situations that needed to be taken care of. And so going to that bit of stubbornness, smidgen teeny tiny bit of stubbornness. And, having been born and raised in New Jersey, for those who can understand my sarcastic joke references, there's just a smidgen, teeny tiny bit of stubbornness when it comes to myself. I haven't hidden that. Again, in the years of 2005, mainly around July of 2005, May or July of 2005, I started doing my hair this way and living in the state of Texas. While now in 2022, you see all sorts of females with different hairstyles and different hair colors other than longer hair and more of the natural hair colors. In 2005, you just have to look it up online and see what the average hairstyle was, especially for below the Mason-Dixon line. And so in 2005 onward, I've kind of been doing my hairstyle this way. Different shades of red, but the hairstyle with the shades of red nonetheless. And, others' opinions are others' opinions. And you know the saying when it comes to everybody who has an opinion. And that particular choice of wording. So if you go to my website, www.susanmeeling.com, you are capable to find the different books I authored and compiled together. And one of those books, more so in reference to finding a silver lining, written by me, Reverend Susan MeeLing. Now, there are some compilations in that because of different documents and news articles, so that way there's the clarification for certain situations. Maybe, just maybe, there's a particular reference point about the opinions that you could be capable to find, unless it's in my other book, Finding the Silver Lining, written by me, Reverend Susan MeeLing. And I am a reverend. I'm an ordained reverend. I've been a confirmed member of the Presbyterian Church, United States of America, at Old Tenet Presbyterian Church since 1997. I began my classes in 1996. But I became an ordained reverend in the year of 2004, or 2005, one or the other. Nonetheless, been that way for quite a bit of time. And so my stubbornness, I had a lot of people over the years of my childhood, my teenage years, and even my adulthood that had issues in reference to my particular viewpoints in regards of the different aspects of the Ten Commandments, the Golden Rule, certain situations such as those. And in regards of my scuba diving, well, that's kind of extremely important when you take in consideration of technology because of those 10 commandments and certain references because of AI. And I warned people about this. Some people thought I was joking. They thought it was, not that big of a deal from 2000, but in reference to scuba diving, more so 2009. I got made fun of a lot about that, and it was one of those, well, you really should take that into consideration. It's kind of important. So in reference of stubbornness, despite a lot of situations, again, being an unattached female when I was involved in scuba diving in the year of 2009, and absolutely refusing to go along with any of the normal plans, which the normal plans for most scuba divers, whether you're a female or a male, but specifically in 2009, the average plan was, in reference to a female, was to go and get your certification with whatever individual you were involved with. And at most, on average, you were going to get your advanced open water. If you chose to go above open water into advanced, maybe you'd become a dive master, and even less likely of a chance for you to become a scuba dive instructor. I did not want to do any of those. I did not want to be just an advanced open water scuba diver. Not anything wrong with it. I had my own goals. I absolutely did not want to be a dive master, but I wanted to master scuba diving, which are very different situations. And that has to do with my creation of the underwater travel system. And then there is the scuba dive instructor, which there was only one way that I was going to become a scuba dive instructor. And I set that for myself because of my own particular reasons. So my son and my daughter had to be taught by me the way I had been taught in a modified way because of my upbringing. And the moment that situations occurred during the year of 2009 into the year of 2010, well, that completely removed that off the table. That completely removed any need, want, or desire for me to be a scuba dive instructor because I had to do it my way. And it was going to only be my way. That was it. Which the scuba divers I knew at the time, they didn't ever ask me what it would take for me to be interested in that. All they had brought up was the normal plan. Well, that's nice. I didn't get into scuba diving the normal way for a biological female. I began my scuba diving because of the after effects from my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000 during basic training. And since from the year of 2000 through to 2008, into 2009 officially, there was not anything that had actually assisted my headache pain in a way that was noticeable to actually be beneficial and helpful to me. I had come across a Jewish medical journal, which had follow-up research completed by a British medical journal and a few other medical journals that had found that scuba diving assisted people who had headaches. That was how I got involved with scuba diving. Now, I acknowledged back then in the year of 2009 and onward that I had seen scuba divers out off of the coastline of New Jersey. It does have an ocean on one of the sides of New Jersey. There's also a few areas of lakes and rivers. You know, that's a different type of scuba diving usually when it comes to a specific river. I can make a joke about being born in the year of the dog, and there is a dog that has a specific reference. Whether you want to look at the pointer or the retriever, whichever breed, it still works. Especially growing up out there in the 1980s and 1990s. For those who apparently know those references a little bit more. So, I can acknowledge I'm a smidgen, teeny tiny bit different in quite a few ways. So, in reference to scuba diving, I had my ways. And there was nothing that was going to deter me. That was the facts. There was no scuba diver that was going to get me to change my mind, because my viewpoints and this is still true today, if you can present me with facts that I can mull over and review the details of that could possibly change my opinion, okay, go ahead. I welcome discussions. If you cannot, though, if it's just your opinion, if it's just a temper tantrum, if it's just that, well, that's just not going to be enough for me. Realistically, your temper tantrum, I have 2 children. And how the situations were in reference to, I don't care about your opinion. I dealt with raising 2 children by myself, and then there's my biological mother, biological father, and biological sister. So your opinions are your opinions, and I refer you back to my website, www.susanmeeling.com, in reference to those 2 books I referred to earlier. And so if you can prove to me why, okay, but it cannot be under an abusive situation, because that's not a reason. It cannot be under temper tantrums, because that's not a reason. It cannot go off of your feelings, because that's not a reason. It has to be facts. I am extremely CDO about that. And so if it is facts as to why I should, well then, present the facts. If it is just one of those other situations, I didn't ask for that. That's not what I asked for. I'm quite particular. And again, a smidgen stubborn. So, in those references, and then, being a leather dominant female pansexual in the lifestyle, unattached yet again, it takes a bit to remain true to oneself. And so again, in regards of Lady Dori Belle, as far as my name, don't let that fool you. Don't let my modeling fool you either, because those modeling pictures from 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, there were no, and you can go to my website, www.susanmeeling.com, to see those pictures. So there was no photoshopping regarding the mountain of tires that I was climbing on. That was not a photoshopped picture. Maybe there was a filter done, but I actually climbed on top of those in heels, in a corset. Yes, I did that. The airplane where I'm sitting on the airplane wing. Yes, I climbed a ladder in heels, in that outfit, sat on the airplane, did that. Yes. Not while it wasn't flying. I don't know if I needed to clarify that, but just in case. So, and then there are other situations where, but you can see the pictures on my website, www.susanmeeling.com. Now, there are some photographers that decided to either filter or Photoshop, such as the knowledge that I did not do nudes or implied nudes. That was a massively huge factor for me, and so those photographers who made those choices did not get my approval for that. They chose to alter those pictures without my permission or consent. That clarification did need to be made. So, especially for the time frames where I was dating someone and or engaged to someone, because, well, I do believe in those 10 commandments in every capacity. It's important. So, going in regards of my scuba diving, smidgen stubborn. Just by a lot, just earning 26 scuba diving certifications in comparison to the 5 certifications with advanced open water, and then I think it's 50 hours of dive time for a dive master, and then the addition is first aid and CPR with the 5 certifications and advanced open water and 100 hours of dive time to become a scuba dive instructor. I had earned 26 scuba diving certifications, one of which, of course, includes the advanced open water. And instead of just first aid and CPR, I earned my certification for first aid CPR with AED. And on top of that, before I ever went out to the ocean, which is where I earned my 24th and 25th scuba diving certification, I already had over 150 to 175 scuba dive hours. So I did not do things the normal way. And for a scuba dive instructor, it usually takes any amount of time, but there is the 2-year average. I completed everything from officially March to November as far as my certifications in the year of 2009. So I'm a smidgen stubborn when it comes to that. Now, I did everything I could to be honest, because that's how I am. And so I did acknowledge that I did not graduate basic training officially. I did acknowledge the fact that I had a head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000 officially. I did officially inform the scuba dive school, as well as my scuba dive instructors, that I had a subarachnoid hemorrhage in the frontal lobe of my brain from my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. As I had also acknowledged the after effects in those sorts of situations. Anybody who's had a discussion with me at any point in time, even including up to, more recently, I'll go as far as 2019, 2020, but, possibly even into 2021 and 2022, where I brought up the after effects of my head injury from Palm Sunday in 2000, which would let you know what was informed to the scuba divers and scuba dive instructors during the year of 2009. Because I was honest about that. Not because it was something that was their business officially, more along the lines of, this is why sometimes I have difficulties explaining things, or this is why sometimes it takes a while for me to get certain points out. It's not to be rude, it's not to waste your time, it's actually to prevent the wasting of your time. Because, I can make a joke about reading Rainbow. The more you know, the less you can pretend. And so, especially when it comes to serious situations such as scuba diving. So one of my goals that I had told one of my instructors out at Lake Travis in, I think it was about April, I had told the instructor that I was planning my trip out to Florida, and I needed to make sure that I had gone scuba diving in the ocean before I went out to Florida. And we discussed certain factors, and I said, yeah, I want to go out to the Vandenberg. And he was like, okay, yeah. He was looking at going to the Oriskany. And I was like, yeah, so my goal is, I have a few things I need to take care of, but I'm gonna land at the bottom of the ocean next to the Vandenberg. And he looked at me and he was like, nah, so it's 115 feet to the tower at the Oriskany. Yeah, that's nice. I'm not going to the Oriskany. I'm going to the Vandenberg. And, well, yes. And the Vandenberg is in a deeper area of the ocean compared to the Oriskany. Yeah, the Oriskany is off of the continental shelf. The Vandenberg is in the abyss. Yeah, I know. Okay. What's your problem? And so he kept going on about this, whatever, and that's nice. That's okay. That's nice. In that reference of that's nice. For those who understand that, you can go to my website, www.susanmeeling.com, and that particular aspect, that's nice. That's nice for you. I understand for you. You know that it's 115 feet apparently, from what their measure. I don't know what their measurements are though, but sure, it's 115 feet. Sure, that's what you want to let. No, that's fine. You know, a whole bunch of boats have to go over the top part of the ocean, and there's downward draught and whatnot of that. But sure, no, that's fine. You think it's 115 feet. That's fine. No. You know I'm medically retired from the Army. Yeah, sure, I didn't graduate basic training. I did tell you that I went through the process for Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment. So you take that however you choose to take that. That's fine. And you can take that as a female, that's fine, or what have you in that reference. But that's nice for you if you think that it's 115 feet to the top of the tower. No. There's just cruise ships that go over that. Sure. No, that's fine. Yeah, no. That's okay. You go right ahead. You go believe that. And then when you realize, you'll learn. No, that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. I know. I physically look as I do. Don't let that fool you. Yeah. Your biggest mistake will be to underestimate me. Yes. And it is what it is in that reference. I'm a smidgen stubborn. And, you know, and I explained to the scuba divers and scuba dive instructors about this particular tattoo, and they were like, what does that have to do with you being stubborn? I think it has a very good symbolic message. I do. I think that it's pretty symbolic as to how stubborn I can be. I do. I could be incorrect on that. Call me kooky, that's fine. But I'm fairly certain that's a pretty good standard as far as my stubbornness. But it is also a good standard in reference to, well, there's some pictures that I took when I had the time to take those pictures in reference to out from Boca. Yes, where the color of the water changed. You know, when I had the time to take the pictures. From when I was done. And so, you know, however you guys who do the ... stuff, however you take that, I can make a joke. I was born and raised in New Jersey. It wasn't a river though. It was the ocean, which means there's more water. And however you choose to take that in consideration, but you ... guys, hi. Shadows. And so in that reference point, you know, it is what it is. I can make my jokes as far as that's concerned, but you know what they say about jokes. There's truth behind every joke. So, you know, I just changed the color of the water. That's all. You know, I went and I took care of things. So that way, you know, it was safer around the world. Because, you know, the ocean is around the world. It is. For those of you who don't know. The ocean is around the world. Granted, the majority of my work was in the Gulf of Mexico area, which is considered a gulf, but it does have the ocean water. But it's a gulf. And I took care of that, that's cool. And then, but that water doesn't move nearly as fast as the Atlantic area of the ocean. So, I can make my joke reference in regards of my outfit. Because, there's red and white and blue, and then, the average color for things on land, those who get that particular joke are black. But green, for those who understand that reference as far as those pictures. But, it's okay, because those... I did make the attempts to bring my scuba dive gear to a correct, secure location. I did make those attempts. Unfortunately, it didn't go as well as I had worked towards getting that taken care of because of quite a few situations. Especially after getting back from Florida. Now, I can go over in reference to when I went out to the ocean earning my 24th and 26th scuba diving certifications. Similarly to other certifications and speaking with the instructor or instructors, so there's dry suit scuba diving, and I had one instructor in the pool area and then another instructor out in the water area. We had discussed those things, and I had explained to Jeff Davis my ideal scuba dive would be during the aurora borealis in Alaskan waters. And he was confused as to why, and I said, because can you imagine what the lights would look as underneath the water? How beautiful that would be. Can you imagine what the animals would be doing differently during that time frame? Now, I acknowledge I had not gone over certain background aspects, such as my grandpa Gavitt. I did not go over that. I did go over Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment. And I also went over the fact that I did not graduate basic training in the Army. I also did not go over a trip that I had when I was a teenager in regards to, which is an irony as far as the name Aurora Borealis, when I went from, it was supposed to be from Illinois to Ohio, but because those who know how MapQuest was in the 1990s, especially, I went from Illinois to Iowa and then to Ohio because of MapQuest. Okie dokie, fine. I could make a joke about vision quests. Ish. Nonetheless, I had been pulled over in Indiana, which apparently there's a town called Aurora, and I did not know at that time about certain situations, and I acknowledge I was speeding. Yes, I was. I was, in that reference of Aurora, Indiana, I was going far faster than 127 miles an hour. However, the officer who had pulled me over had informed me that the reading on his radar detection did not make sense as to the number. So that was why I got a warning ticket in comparison, which I didn't actually have to pay anything. It was just a warning, and it was for 127 miles an hour, but he had said that it was the reverse as far as the number that his radar had picked up. And I, being the age that I was, and being across state lines, as well as, I was being rebellious-ish, I guess. But then what I saw in the rear view, for those who understand the Irving reference, I can make a joke because it's, the truth. I had to pull over, not because of the police officer. Later on, that was because my rear passenger tire, it needed to have air put into it, because those who understand when you drive fast, sometimes there's a situation with the tires. Sometimes. And when those situations with tires occurs, you have to make sure that the tires are taken care of, because that's how the car goes. There's other components to that. However, I needed to do that, and it was as it was. And then the male I was dating at the time, he actually had a garage or something of the sort, and I was like, yeah, so that 442, can we drop that into this Honda Civic? And he was like, he looked at me, he's like, well, it'll go really fast. That's awesome. Yeah, no, and of course I did bring up the fact that I had been pulled over. I did not tell him about the numbers, except for the 127. Um, but I also did not tell him about what I was driving from. Mm-hmm. Because who would have believed me in that reference at that time? And that was 1999. By the time of 1999, I had already spoken with multiple people who, in the 1980s and 1990s, did not believe me when it came to a lot of things, whether in reference to religion and certain aspects, as well as technology and certain aspects. And then there were those who did not believe me when it came to the ocean and certain aspects. So by the time, of what was it, The Little Mermaid that came out, I had told people about certain things and they were like, oh, that's just, your imagination from the movie. And it's like, no, I'm using it as a reference point. I'm not being imaginative. I'm using that as a reference point. And a bunch of them were, oh, whatever, sure. So then in regards of what are considered extraterrestrials, there were apparently a bunch of movies that were coming out at that time frame where nobody wanted to listen to me. Nobody wanted to believe me. I was just a child. I was just a teenager. I was just this. I was just that. It was just. And it was like, okay. So by the time of 1999, I had already stopped talking about it. I'd given up. It was one of those, I'm done. I'm so tired of dealing with people who have absolutely no faith in a multitude of ways, and only if I absolutely have to will I go into it, because I'm tired of this. I could have been capable to go to MAST, or Marine and Science Technology School. I couldn't explain to my biological mother, biological father, or biological sister as to why I had the invitation to attend MAST. And those who understand military backgrounds, especially when it comes to clearances, yeah, that's nice, you're my biological mother. That's nice, you're my biological father. That's nice, you're my biological sister. That's nice. That's nice. For you. I can't go into why I was invited. I can't go into the process of by legal aspects. And so, in regards of technology pieces in the house, back in that time frame, I had noticed certain situations that occurred after the process of. So after going through the test portion, as well as the essay, as well as the interviews, and including those different times where different people from Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment went to speak with my biological mother and biological father, after a certain point, I had noticed certain situations when it came to the technology. Not necessarily the prudential computer, more along the lines of lights, like the light switch, not light switches, but the lights where they would get brighter and dim, but not have a dimmer. And I'd notice certain things when I discuss certain topics. And it was, okay, that's interesting. And then I noticed certain factors at church, at Old Tenet Presbyterian Church, when it came to certain people that I spoke with. By that time, in that year, my grandpa Gavin had already passed away. Same thing with my buckum. So there wasn't that pre-arrangement in reference to who I spoke with. That particular protocol that was arranged because of essentially the term of handler or handlers, that wasn't there anymore. And so for those who understand certain things in reference to Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment, you could probably understand why they annoyed my biological mother, biological father especially, but certain things in reference to my biological sister because of certain situations. And so, especially in reference to my grandpa Gavitt for that particular aspect, as well as my buck poo. And so, in those regards of later and scuba diving, um, when I went out to Cozumel, in Cancun area, with the several scuba divers I went with, one being my scuba dive instructor, I had, said, you discuss these things. It's called a dive plan. And so they asked what my plans were other than earning the 2 certifications, which would occur the first day of being there. So, I'm going to go land at the bottom of the ocean. That's all. What I take care of is what I take care of. You don't need to worry about that. I'm just going to, you'll have a safe scuba dive. It's okay. It's okay. I know that you know how to do it, that you'll have a safe scuba dive. Because. And so, in regards of the airport before flying out, my scuba dive instructor was telling my roommate at the time about, no. He called me a minnow who graduated to a tadpole, and that this particular scuba dive trip was going to be where I was a bullfrog. Excuse me. Excuse me. I am a biological female. Don't let my looks fool you. I can have feelings, Don't, I'm just saying, just because I was born and raised in New Jersey, I can have feelings, okay? Okay, fine, I'm a tomboy. Excuse you. I can have feelings, even though, I'm just saying. Just gonna throw that out there. Thank you very much. Just rar. But anyway, which is probably the least rar thing ever. But nonetheless, it was one of those, well, you know what? Jeff, I'm gonna go outside and go have a cigarette. I'm so mad at you. And he's like, why are you mad at? Because you have a girlfriend. You know what? That's why you're not married. Mm-hmm. Because you go and call other females a name such a, no, that's fine. Mm-hmm. No, that's okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. Maybe if she can get you to not be such a whatever in that regard. So who was my roommate? He's like, well, I smoke too. I'll go outside with you. And it's like, oh, what are you going to do? Protect me? No, that's fine. It's okay. Sure. No. And he laughed at me and he was like, I could be protective. Yeah, that's nice. No, that's cute. That's cute. I could be protective too. And we joked back and forth that he was just, yeah, well, I'm gonna, whatever, that's nice. No, that's okay. Mm-hmm. It's okay. So, we went outside and we talked, and he was like, so what's your scuba diving background? Why is it that, I have to be on this? Well, it's just because I need a roommate, apparently. That's all. And he was, excuse you? And it's like, yeah, what do you think you're doing here? You're not, what's, what? Do you think that I need you to help me with my scuba diving? And he was like, well, what's your background? And that's a fairly stereotypical discussion between scuba divers. And, oh, well, I've earned a few certifications. And he's like, oh, well, that's cool. How long have you been scuba diving? Oh, just since February. And, oh, okay. So just since February. Yeah, just since February of this year in 2009. And, okay. So you've earned a couple of certifications. Yeah. The course smorgasbord that International has. Yeah, yeah. So I'm just earning the last 2 of that smorgasbord. And okay. Well, that's okay. Oh, it's okay. That's cool. No, that's fine. So, talked about the goal. And I was like, yeah, so I'm just going to go land at the bottom of the ocean. And he laughed at me. And I was, what's so funny? And he's like, oh, you know the ocean's deep, right? Yeah, I got that memo. That's why it's called the ocean and it's not called a lake. I don't know if you know that there is a difference between bodies of water. You can either have a lake or a river or a creek or a pond or a pool or the ocean. I literally said I'm gonna go land at the bottom of the ocean. And he was like, sure, okay, well, why? Well, I was born in the year of the dog. So I gotta go mark my territory. It's mine and mine alone. And he's like, what? And I'm like, it's a thing. I'm CDO about this. It's a thing. And he's just okay. No. Because don't pretend that you haven't peed in your wetsuit. Well, he has a yellow wetsuit, so I'm just gonna leave that alone. And since I acknowledge having peed in my wetsuit, I also acknowledge I've peed in the shower before. I cannot be the only one. I've done that since I was a child. Why would I waste water? And for those who grew up in New Jersey specifically, and more specifically going to Asher Holmes Elementary School, if you remember the assemblies regarding water conservation, it's one of those, yeah, well, I can just pee in the shower and just liquid. So I've been doing it, whatever, that's fine. It goes down the drain anyway. Same area, same whatever, it is what it is, it's no big deal. And so I can make a joke, I've owned myself since then. Being born in the year of the dog, and you know how dogs are. And so I have a twisted sense of humor. That's fine. And so in regards of the trip out to Cozumel and stuff like that, it's I'm gonna go do this, and I've got some stuff to handle. And he was like, oh, well, what are you gonna handle? I've got stuff I've got to handle. Why do you want to know? And he was all, well, and he was kind. He was. But it was one of those, I'm gonna go take care of what I gotta take care of. It is what it is. But you'll have a safe scuba dive. It's okay. And he was like, what? And I was, yeah, you'll have a safe scuba dive. It's okay. It's okay. No need to be scared. It's okay. And he kind of seemed like he got offended. It is what it is. It's later I learned that he was either an assistant instructor or something like that, or an instructor, and it was like, oh, well, congratulations. That's nice. No, that's okay. It's cool. Yeah, I'm not being rude. That's cool. Yeah. Okay, cool. You do scuba. That's cool. Yeah, I got involved because of these reasons. I didn't go into Grandpa Gallet. I didn't go into my buck gung. I didn't go into my buck poo. I did bring up all the other stuff though, as far as certain aspects, and he was just, oh, well, that's cute. That's what you do. No, it's okay. It's okay. Your friend just called me a bullfrog. I'm just gonna not take my upsetness. Out on you, because I know how to keep myself under control and not to project. So I'm just gonna smoke this cigarette and rar to myself. Rar. So, in that reference, the first scuba dive was a shoreline dive, the first two, and went out, and they were, before we dropped down, it was one of those, okay, so you're going to go do that? Yep, I'm going to land at the bottom of the ocean, and then, I'll meet you back at the same level, and that'll be my service interval, or my safety stop, I should say. Which they thought I was joking. I wasn't. No, that's why there's truth behind every joke. And so, there's the picture in reference to, there's this huge boat right from where we had gone into the water. And that's exactly where I went and landed at the bottom of the ocean first. And then, yeah, okay, well, let's do that. Let's do the rest of the scuba dive. And it's funny because those two scuba divers, one being my instructor, the other being my roommate, I go and land and I'm like, hi. And they're, they waved. And then, shot back up to the surface. Well, ish, it was whatever in comparison. And I landed, is what it is, I guess. I can make the joke. So, the rest of the scuba dives during that time frame, when I had time, I took pictures. Yeah, when I had the time. Similarly to Boca and similarly out at the Vandenberg, when I had the time. When I did. Meaning when I had the time to actually maintain my buoyancy. Because those digital cameras, especially back in 2009, you had to maintain your buoyancy to be capable to get a clear picture. So, when I had the time to have my buoyancy under control, to be capable to take the pictures that I did, then I did so. Such as when I found those forming underwater volcanoes. And, when I had the time compared to what was going on. So then in reference to later and the Vandenberg, I've taken a few pictures and you can see the difference regarding the number of pictures for many reasons, because it was when I had the time. Yeah, I was handling things, and so it was as it was. It was. And so there goes to the reference in regards of Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment. Yeah, that whole thing, among a few other reasons. And then just, just another day. So later, in reference to Irving in the year of 2011, between 2009 to 2011, there was the attempts I was making to get my scuba dive gear to Fort Sam Houston because of knowing the Navy and Marines being there. Because I had worked with the unit for special warfare in the building that they used to be in back in the year of 2000, which was not far from what used to be Medical Hold Unit, which is now known as Warrior Transition Unit. And both were moved closer, more formally, because that building was there back in, if I recall correctly, 2000, but I think it was a different unit that was there before the Navy and Marine Special Warfare Unit. And so, but I had worked, and those who know military stuff, you know how that goes on a military installation, so it is what it is in that reference. And so back in 2009, there was the situations regarding the civilian recreational scuba divers. I have to specify that it's not being mean, it's the reality, because military would not have hesitated to just ask me. The problem at the time was the fact that very few people understood the aspects, and if you didn't have certain clearance, and it had to be specific because of how those who understand that understand the knowledge regarding, you could tell me what your clearance is, you could tell me some of the stuff you've done, that's cool. If you do not respond a certain way or you do not follow certain specific protocols, you understand from that knowledge that I was incapable to go into those particular details without certain specifications. And so it's not in any offense then, just as it isn't any offense now. It's just that is the facts. So if there were civilians who were like, well, we'll do it this way, well, if you just followed protocol, the answers would have been done sooner. Same thing in reference to military and higher law enforcement. If you had followed protocol, would have been done much quicker and swifter in comparison. But it was as it was during those time frames, and so it is what it is. So then there's Irving in 2011, which I was still dealing with a few things because it wasn't until 2012 that the U-Haul situation, which I was literally right about to get it there, and that whole thing. And so it was one of those, okay, fine. Hopefully that won't be a problem ever again, because that sort of situation, at minimum for me, because that situation is important in that regard. And I was genuinely making the attempts. The irony of ironies is, even though I had been dealing with, oh, you're a Republican, how can you be a Republican? The facts of the matter are, those who were proud to have voted for 44, they did not pay attention to the fact that I had fought to be emancipated in the year officially to join the Army is 2000. Yeah, there's the 2000 election that happened in November, but who was President of the United States of America and Vice President of the United States of America throughout the rest of the year? How about who was President and Vice President of the United States of America in the year of 1996 through to 2000? Was that a Republican or was that a Democrat? Oh, it was a Democrat. Okay. So the political affiliation meant nothing to me back then. Not in any offense towards either political party, just more along the lines of, when there are certain things that need to be taken care of, there are certain things that need to be taken care of. And so political alignment in that reference, no, that doesn't mean anything to me in regards of getting things taken care of correctly. My personal political viewpoint is on the conservative Republican with some Democratic social views. So that's is what it is. It's independent, but it's not, and it is what it is. But the political party meant nothing to me as far as who was in office at the time. So while people were going on and on about 44, it was one of those that means nothing to me. Not in any offense towards 44, just the political party means nothing. So if it was all the others involved in that particular point in time, obviously in regards to the U-Haul situation, that's other people's opinions. I dealt with the Thanksgiving dinner, aside from the fact that the Thanksgiving dinner was before Thanksgiving, because my biological mother and biological father and biological sister, they were going over to the family's house of who my biological sister had married into. And, you know, those who knew in San Antonio knew how that was, as well as in Austin, have the understanding from the knowledge of what I dealt with. And so, and in reality, there is, well, I feel bad for that family. Even though, learning later the political whatever connection aspect, it's one of those, well, I feel bad for you because you think that you don't know New Jerseyans in the way you might think. And so those particular situations, that's their what have you, and so it is what it is in that regard. But I did warn my biological sister, New Jersey politics are not the same way in the state of Texas. There are certain similarities, yes, and then there's other differences that you don't understand. This is why I was like, I'm gonna go enlisted, because unless I have to, because in the enlisted realm, you don't have to deal with politics, or more specifically politicians, until you're a certain rank. That is you deal with certain things as far as politics as everybody does in regards to enlisted, but you don't really have to deal with politicians, which are different than elected officials, until essentially about E7, E8 ranking. The only way an enlisted really has to deal with it sooner than that is essentially if they're a lower rank enlisted soldier that gets field grade promoted into the either chief warrant officer or officer aspect. So unless that occurs, there's not that same requirement of, and those who understand, the chief warrant officers, they have to deal with politics and elected officials pretty much from the start, but not to the same level as officers do. You know, and officers, they have to deal with that more similar to the enlisted at a higher rank, but they deal with the politics at lower ranks in comparison to politics with the elected officials at higher ranks. And so it was one of those, yeah, I don't feel like dealing with that. I don't want to. So I'm going to do it this way because I don't want to. Not in any offense towards political families, not in any offense towards elected officials. Just, no offense. It's just I don't have patience for that. You have to have a certain personality. And I can be kind. It's my face. That's that's kind of the situation, especially after waking up from my coma after my head injury. Because before, yeah, you really wouldn't have been capable to tell too much from my facial responses. And then there's after I woke up from my coma. Yeah, that's just the way it is. So, I did what I could to steer clear from that. So the irony in reference to my biological sister marrying into a political family, it's like, well, that's fine. That's okay. You mean I don't have to do that? Well, that works out because that, no, you know how to do the little that's fine. I once again am a smidgen stubborn. So there's that. Uh-huh. I'm going to go do my own thing. I'm going to go be myself. Respectful. But yeah, I got stuff I got to do, which is irony because of later, if my biological mother, biological father, biological sister all of a sudden were like, well, well, too bad. That's nice, and it doesn't change certain things because my gear needed to be taken to a specific location, going back to that Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment situation. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that U-Haul situation in Austin, Texas in the year of 2012. Big deal. Mm-hmm. Huge deal. Huge. But I did what I could. I made every attempt possible. Despite certain situations, and those who understand military aspects, despite the fact of not having the political bias, there are certain situations where you take into consideration the time frame of mast as well as fighting to be emancipated into the equation. And so certain things in reference to those who understand that had to be a certain way in regards to the online portion. It is what it is in that reference. Those who understand that knowledge, they understand that. Those who may not have known that back then and or didn't think about it back then, it was as it was because I could not acknowledge my bias. Despite how many people had brought up that, how could you be a Republican? Because I'm a Republican because of the ideals. Yes, I have some Democrat beliefs towards the social policies, which probably makes more sense when you think about it now in the year of 2022. But yes, I do have that, and I do acknowledge the fact that I was born and raised in New Jersey. Remember, I fought to be emancipated during the time frame of 42, as far as the President of the United States of America, Bill Clinton, and Vice President of the United States of America, Al Gore. I did go into those details. And so that is what it is in that reference. But I did make the attempts, and by the time of 2011, which is before 2012, obviously, the situation regarding in the year of 2011, before living in Irving, for that reference, just a few months, just a few months before living in Irving, from the time frame of the end of 2010 into the time frame of 2011, I had dealt with a bunch of Austinites who were like, oh, we're the smartest in the universe. Or I will be as diplomatic as I possibly can be. No. Why don't you look at like the city or the state in the United States of America, continent, hemisphere, planet, before going past the galaxy, completely bypassing the galaxy, and going and saying the universe. And the situations were as they were, and so I did it. By that point, it was no different to me than when I was growing up in New Jersey, as far as that type of a discussion. And I was dealing with that in elementary school and middle school, in comparison to the biological adults. And it was just one of those, well, I'm just not even gonna bother. I am not going into, because I already dealt with this as a child. And since you are just biologically older and you have less knowledge of technology compared to people I grew up with, I'm just not gonna waste my breath. Yeah, I'm gonna do that, because that's it's not being rude, it's being intelligent. And so I'm gonna keep that, if I had a pocket, I'd put it in a bucket. I'll just, I won't say anything. So at that time, and so in reference to later in the year of 2011, and Irving. And so for those who know that apartment complex and location, I wrote about what occurred in a brief sort of way, because that was only one experience in comparison, similarly to growing up as a child and a teenager, and then Indiana. And so I have had multiple experiences, and not that I ever hit it, it's the clearance. It's the protocol. And so when I was a child and having my grandpa Gavitt, as well as my babysitter's husband, who had been a director of security, the World Trade Center, as well as my bakong and my bakpu, those situations regarding how the protocol was to speak with me about those details was heavily guarded in a lot of ways, because again, I was invited to do the formal process regarding Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment don't let my looks fool you. I was a massively huge dork as a child. And so those who take into consideration those 26 scuba diving certifications I earned and all of the work that I had accomplished to earn my 26 scuba diving certifications, those who are not in scuba diving but know about my involvement with the Dominant Mentor program and how many extra work aspects I had done regarding my own education, my homework, the electives, you have a version to look at as far as how I was as a child and a teenager in those references. So don't let my physical looks fool you. I was a huge dork. When I was a child, I was a massively huge dork. There's reasoning in regards to why I like Belle from Beauty and the Beast and the Disney aspect, because that was a grown-up version of how I was as a child in reference to books. I could just sit in a library and read the entire section because I was a speed reader on top of that. And so I had taken a speed reading course later to see if there was anything I could add to assist me, but I had already had used more than those techniques. And so I was that child and teenager. I didn't really watch movies. I didn't really watch television. If I did, it was limited. Yes, partially by rating choice. Also partially because I preferred books. Because that's a different way of learning. And so where there are those who visually learn, and I can visually learn, I'm extremely methodical and detail-oriented in those references. So yes, I learn from visual aspects, but technically books are visual because you have to read the words. And again, I was excited to take Greco-Roman Latin. Most people who took Greco-Roman Latin were only doing it for college. I was not looking at college in that time frame. I had already had the situations in reference to Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment. College was not on my mind. So Greco-Roman Latin, I was excited to take, if you catch my drift. Pun intended, regarding a scuba diving certification I have, which that lets you know yet again how much of a dork I have been my entire life. I really have. Nonetheless, so going in regards of Irving and a few others in regards of Indiana and growing up in New Jersey and going to New York State, which I'm sure there are a few situations in those regards. My grandpa Gavitt and my Buckung and my Buck Poo, as well as my babysitter's husband, referencing the church I grew up going to, and there's a music video I had found more recently of it's called Men in Black, which is kind of funny. And so there is that reference point regarding certain individuals in suits who would ask my opinion after arranging certain protocol standards, if that is something which makes sense to some people. And so I can make a joke about my colors as well regarding scuba diving and the lifestyle. there has been the facts that when getting involved in the lifestyle officially in the year of 2004, in comparison to more well-known in 2009, my colors were black and white. And I can make a few jokes in reference to San Antonio. And those who have the understanding regarding Washington State, that San Antonio in the earlier point in time, only different hair and no tattoos, for those who understand that. Plus, I recognized where I was in comparison to Washington State because of the plant life and the botany. Because of being born and raised in New Jersey, the rhododendrons and azaleas and tulips and lilacs and all that sort of stuff, that's commonplace for New Jersey, not the state of Texas. And so, in regards of, it's been a surprise after all these years, but then taking into consideration certain other factors as to why only more recently, which is good, more individuals and groups have been stepping forward to go over various details in those references. Because, yeah, you can look at certain things that have occurred, not in specific to the COVID situation, but certain sayings that have come out. So human trafficking being a consideration, how could human trafficking in this particular reference be different? Because that should scare you. Not just on land, not just in the water, more along the lines of Irving. You know, they can just show up from wherever to where that patio was. And that whole situation, that, again, Indiana, and that whole thing, those pictures and videos and all that sort of stuff. And so there's been a few situations where, you know, wording for me is difficult because the irony is I don't have many reference points on that. Because I wasn't allowed to watch that stuff as a child. I didn't really need to, though, when you really truthfully think about it. Why would I need to watch a movie about certain things? Oh, there's movies about extraterrestrial stuff? Oh, well, yeah, that's about time. There you go. Oh, okay, the Big Blue Book. Oh, okay. Well, you know, they turned that into a TV show. Oh, okay. They turned that into a movie. Oh, okay. Well, that's cool. You know, just going in there. You know, that's my thoughts. And so I've dealt with a few things, and only with 45 has certain things become more well known. So you do have the fact that there's been NASA. That's been around for a while. There are other space groups and organizations and agencies and businesses that have been more predominantly known as time has gone on in comparison to the 1980s and 1990s, even the early 2000s. So you have those signs in that reference, literally and figuratively, because they have signs for their business. They do. As well as location. They do. They tend to. Which I can make a joke, and this is just a joke, but it is kind of funny. So in the year of 2011, with the Irving situation, I was dating a guy who had the last, or probably still does, has the last name of Kennedy. And I had gone to Florida, took my son, my daughter, and my niece to the Kennedy Space Center. It only took me till 2021 to figure that out. 2020 or 2021, yeah. Yeah, as far as the last name portion, yeah. And then, if you go to my website, www.susanmeeling.com, I have a book series I authored where I was just being creative. And that was it. I was just being creative. So there's the irony in that reference as well. But then there's also the irony in regards of security. In quite a few references. Not just his job, but in regards of when we were dating and I had gone to a few places and stuff like that. There's just that irony in San Antonio, more specifically. Which it still is what it is in that reference, nonetheless. It's just funny at this point because, glitter and Sailor Moon. Because, these stairs, I've already gone over that particular reference of how I had snuck down the stairs, which is funny because of the way the wood is on this side, and then it's a flat wall in comparison to the wood wall paneling, which those who know how wood wall paneling is. Yeah, I had to be a ninja to get downstairs to be capable to watch Sailor Moon. Because those who understand how the wood paneling types are, because there was just, this part was maybe to here, it's so over both sides, and I had to be total ninja. I had to be the biggest ninja ever, because if you've met my biological father, you understand why. Yes, you do. And he was younger then, and he was not medicated then. And he was in New Jersey. So there's all those factors for those who understand those reference points. And that, yeah. So those who understand the wood wall paneling, because that's what this wall was, whereas this wall, or the staircase, it had partially the wood wall paneling and then the stair rails, but either way, the house was built in the 1940s. So then everybody who knows about houses that were built during that time frame, you know how much creaking and cracking and noises those make. And oh my, yeah, yeah, I had to be a ninja to be capable to do so. I did. That was my capabilities back then. And so, anyway, so I took care of the situations as I did. And yes, don't let my capability to laugh at things fool you either. Because I take things extremely seriously. And even though I'm capable to find things to smile about, to laugh about, or whatever, it doesn't change the fact that I take things extremely seriously. I've had no other choice but to. And especially when you take in consideration of the invitation in 8th grade for MAST. It's something that really has to be taken into consideration, and something that really needs to be remembered. So even though I can be jovial in various ways, it doesn't change the fact that I can and am serious. I just have the ability to laugh at sometimes inappropriate times, but then what's appropriate at that point in comparison to some of the things I've dealt with? Just throwing that out there. So while I have not gone into much detail, because there's just so much detail to what I've seen and gone through and experienced. And so while there haven't been many public declarations, I suppose, from what I've read more recently, I dealt with what I dealt with during those times, and I had brought that up decades ago at this point as to the reality of those different situations and circumstances. and I can only tell the truth, so then there's that additional factor, both in reference to before my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000, regarding in one reference of Indiana, but also additionally in reference to Old Tenet Presbyterian Church and those other aspects, in addition to after waking up from my coma, from my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. So I'm gonna close this particular official YouTube video out with, so in 2020, the month of December, I went out to the Atlantic area of the ocean. After already having gone out there in 2019 and stuff like that. But this was for a different reason, because there was the constellation. In comparison to 2019, there was absolutely no hesitation on either side of those particular situations either, when you especially take that into consideration. More so in reference to 2019 and my scuba diving, but when taking into consideration finding out about the Bethlehem Star in December of 2020, there was absolutely no hesitation for me to get myself out to the East Coast and be, okay, now just remember, I mean, I already had gone down to the Gulf of Mexico area by that point in time and been like, yeah, that's right. That's not how it actually went, but I'm gonna paraphrase it in that reference. So, in 2019, there was the guy who had been a roommate and then later a relationship-ish situation, and he had gone out to Washington State, and, I had taken him out to where I walked on top of the quicksand in front of him and stuff like that, and walked on top of the ocean. And then in reference to the sea lions and stuff like that, and listen, they're talking and stuff, and he's like, you're pissing them off, because I was ooh, and that's that was much louder at that time, and it was as it was. But no, I'm not pissing them off. You're pissing them off by being rude and not listening. They have stuff to tell you, but you want to go and be all arrogant. Well, that's on you. Yeah. Well, when you feel like actually asking me what they have to say, we'll just have to go back and I'll whatever. But that they have some stuff to tell you, and so they're just sea lions. Oh, see your booby down. That's all it says. It's a puppy. By the way, hi Washington State along the coastline, if you heard. that was me. Yeah, going, oh. But that's, it's just, puppy. Nonetheless, it's kind of a similar situation, just reminding, There's also the other situations in that regard of what have you, and so, there's the tentacle situation and a few other aspects of, and so went and took care of those particular situations for reminders. And it is what it is in those references. But back to the Bethlehem Star, going out and, hi, just remember, hi. And then the same sort of situation in regards of into the year of 2021, because of going back out to the East Coast area after the turn of the new year. And then, just another, Happy New Year. Yeah, just letting you know, hey. Just remember, yeah. Just remember, yeah. As far as those who understand that reference of changing the color of the water. Just a quick little reminder, and and just cohabitation. Coexistence. Because, you know, that stuff on land, you know, you leave that alone and it is what it is. So I did the best I could to explain as best as I could before waking up from my coma from my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000, as well as afterwards. I have done the best I could. So hopefully there's a little bit more of a few clarifications for understanding. You guys have a good day. Make sure to go to my website, www.susanmeeling.com, and Happy New Year. Bye.